Welcome to this episode of The Voices of a Black Man. Today we called a town hall meeting that's entitled, Can You Hear Me Now? Now, we wanted to discuss what happened last Wednesday, the attack on our nation's capital, and how it speaks directly to the marches that happened in 2020. So in true The Voices of Black Men fashion, we're doing a good old-fashioned roundtable. I'll be back with you after this. The attack on our nation's capital this past Wednesday.
1:33, they're in. TV anchors watching it unfold live are stunned.
Showed exactly what the marches in the summer of 2020 were all about. The difference in the treatment of people simply due to the color of their skin. Two different Americas. My name's Cheryl James, and I'm the founder of Voices of a Black Man. Join me and special guests, Christopher McIver II, financial advisor and retired United States Air Force serviceman. David Hunter Jr., actor, founder of Made for More Entertainment, and director of operations at Diverse Representation. Jay Graves, veteran, CEO of Pathfinder Business Consultants, inclusion and diversity advocate. Linwood V. Long Sr., senior pastor and president of BV&L Associates Incorporated. Join us live for an in-depth discussion through the lens and the voices of a Black man. This Tuesday, January 12th, 7 p.m. on www.voicesofablackman.com. Can you hear me now? Thank you for tuning in to the Voices of a Black Man Town Hall. Can you hear me now? Again, my name is Cheryl James. I'm the founder of the Voices of a Black Man, and also moderator for tonight. You know, I'm super excited tonight, and I'm excited not because of what happened last Wednesday, but because of having the opportunity to have some dynamic special guests on to have some dialogue about what happened and how it correlates and how it validates the marches that happened in 2020. But also the more conversations that we need to have about change. How do we change? You can't have it without open dialogue. Now, before I invite the guest on to the screen, I want to just tell you a little bit more about Voices of a Black Man, just in case this is your first introduction. Now, the Voices of Black Man was birthed last summer in 2020, right after George Floyd incident and during the marches and protests. There was a void. We were hearing a lot about Black men, but the void was there was no Black men telling their own story. It was being told through others' lenses and skewed into whatever way they wanted to skew it. The truth is, the Voices of a Black Man was created to have a platform that was a safe place for Black men to tell their stories, not a story that society places on them, a story that they're all silent, which equals absent or aggressive. That's not the story. The story is that they are men who are Black, but more importantly, they are human and they come from all walks of life, all cultures. They have different dreams and ambitions. And just like you, they live life because they're human and they're American. So today we want to talk about this and I want to bring them on screen. I'm super excited for this town hall. So the first person I want to talk about is Jay Graves. You know, Jay Graves is a diversity and inclusion specialist. His company, Pathfinders, it does just that. Helps lead and train in diversity and inclusion on a day-to-day basis. So he's not just talking talk, he's walking the walk. Chris McIver II, financial advisor and a recent retiree from the United States Air Force. David Hunter, actor, director of operations for Diverse Representation, as well as CEO for Made for More. Help me out, David.
Entertainment.
I was just saying entertainment. I'm so sorry. Made for More Entertainment. I had it. And then Mr. Linwood Long, Senior Pastor, CEO at BV&L Incorporated. And more importantly, I call him a community change agent. So glad to have each and every one of you on tonight. Thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
Thank you for having me.
You know, you guys, this is not your first rodeo with me. You know, I like to just jump right on into it. You got your seatbelts on?
We do. Strapped in.
Ready.
Are you?
Sounds good. My seatbelt, I got both sides on. Ready to go. So I just want to say to the audience so that they understand that this time is not for any comments. This time is not for any reflections from you onto them. This is truly what Voices of Black Man was set up for, is a time to listen. So we thank you for tuning in today. We thank you for each and every person that's represented today. We actually in the summer did their story. They told their story, and you can go back to voicesofablackman.com to actually see more about them and learn more about them and how they were raised and their story and how they got to where they are today. But let's get into the topic today. There was an attack, a domestic attack, national security attack on our nation's capital. And I don't know about you, but I sat in silence trying to figure out what in the world is happening here. So I want to throw this question out. I'm going to throw it to Jay first. And I just want to set the tone of tonight and set the tone of kind of where you were when you kind of heard what was happening. What were your thoughts? And now that you've been able to sit in it for a few days, almost a week, where are you today?
Great. Thank you first of all, thanks for having me on. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share our voices. Sherelle, you're doing great work and it's a great mission. I was sitting on my couch, actually. I just wanted to see how the proceedings were going. I flipped on the TV and I knew there was going to be a protest. So I expected that, that's our right. And, I've certainly carried my banner or two in the day. Right. So, but it was right as things were kicking off and barricades were being jumped and the walls were being breached. And as a fellow veteran to Chris, it enraged me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. As somebody who is rooted in the protection of this country, the protection of our rights, the protection of our citizenry, and that is our house, seeing it just disrespected that way was appalling. And so probably like most people, I watched it in anger, some confusion, and but mainly anger, quite frankly. Since then, I've really tried to think about and talk to a lot of people on both sides and really try to get an understanding of, okay, how can this happen? We've been attacked before. We've had things happen before. And one of the great things is in the past when this happened, we always came back resilient, right? When you think about those big milestones, 9/11, things like that. But we always had somewhere to point our anger. We always had an enemy, right? We always had somewhere to put it towards. This time it's ourselves. And so that's why I've started reaching out to people that, were not upset about what was going on. And people, lots of dialogue on social media, right? And really trying to understand where people are at. Where I'm at right now is I still think it's appalling for sure. We should not have that. And I think that it's a real concern. My biggest concern of where I'm at right now is we don't know where to point our anger. It's not like before where we said, okay, that's a radical group over there and we're going to do something about this. It's our own citizens. So my big question is, if we can't communicate and if we have entrenched ourselves in these beliefs, two warring belief systems, how are we going to get out of it? And that's what I've been trying to process through as I've talked to colleagues. I'm actually writing an article to pose this question. And that's really where I'm at today is, okay, how do we get out of it when we're pointing at each other this time versus somebody else?
Yeah, Jay, that's interesting and I think on target. And Sherelle, let me thank you for having us. Again, the pastor need to add on to it, emeritus. and that's a distinct difference. But reflecting on last Wednesday, it was almost weeping, simply because the Capitol took on special meaning for me. I had worked there as chief of staff for Congresswoman Eva Clayton. I had a reflection around the times I walked the Capitol, House side and Senate side, and I just wept inside. I never thought that anything like this would happen. In fact, I was in my office, had TV on, I was just listening, and then I heard the commotion, and I'm just saying, is this America? And to learn more about it, it's horrific, despicable, and certainly I don't think any of us will have answers. We have many questions, but inside, one, having been there as indicated, and two, retired military. You know, I had all those memories and all those things to consider. And so I think America has to do some soul searching of itself to live out the true meaning of what it really means about justice, equality, and what does the Constitution really means when it comes to everybody, right? And so I'm just still in a fog about it. I'm gonna just be honest.
I can jump in as well. And again, thank you, Sherelle, for this opportunity, this platform, being here with these other men. I was actually I had taken some time off, and I had a couple losses in the family last year, so I did travel over the holiday, and I went to Philadelphia, where my parents are from. But I was born in Washington, D.C., and I grew up in around the area, and my aunt was a former Capitol police officer. And so upon flying back to L.A., I had a stop in Dallas, and the airport was full of Trump supporters, and it was crazy. And it was, wow. I had never felt that energy, and they were canceling all the flights to DC. So obviously I'm flying to Philly now, but I've always flown to DC. And I was like, why are they canceling flights in DC? What's going on back home? And I had no clue. And literally the next day when I was in LA, it was in the morning out here. And I was getting a text like, hey, you hear what's going on back home? And I turn on the news and I'm like dumbfounded. First off, you know, my aunt obviously recently retired, so she probably knows some of the officers, and people like, you know, hey, are your friends okay? I have a couple of friends that work, you know, and when you're from the area, it's kind of like, you know, you just know people working in those spaces. So I have a friend that was actually in the building being barricaded at that time. And it's just like, it's appalling. It's frustrating because, for one, I don't have the military background, but growing up around the area, I've been on the Capitol grounds, around the White House, on the mall for hanging out all my life. You can't get close to those buildings without that stuff. So to see that type of situation happen in front of you, it's almost disrespectful, because you're like, what is going on? And then it's just so not shocking at the same time, because we've been seeing this pot stirred for 4 years since the president was in office, and nothing had been done up until this point. And my biggest question that I came up with is, if this doesn't stop it, what is going to stop it? Because there had to be some type of cooperation. We'll get into that, but like, how does this get to that point where people can go into there and do something so damaging and then leave and act like they just went to Trader Joe's or the Whole Foods or something? You know what I mean? Like that's the type of mentality that was being displayed. And so that's a dangerous thing to deal with in the times we're in.
Yep.
Yeah. Sherelle, I'll echo what everybody else has been saying. I appreciate you giving us this platform to speak from. We were able to speak earlier last year. I appreciate being here. Appreciate what you're doing. and really was kind of going about my day. I had watched the speech from earlier in the day. Are you guys hearing me okay?
A little choppy, but yeah,
Okay.
gotcha. It's live, you know?
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's audio check. Just want to make sure my words are coming through. I was going through my day. I was kind of, reaching out to some people, make some phone calls, doing a little, building some plans up. And like David, I grew up in the area. I'm from Oxon Hill. I used to travel through the city all the time. Going to high school, like you say, I'd be downtown at the mall, getting street food, Air Space Museum, just kind of cruising through, hit the metro. I even recall being in the very place that those people were back in 1995. I was at the Million Man March. I came home from college, and I stood there in front of those steps. And just remember being there. I remember being a very peaceful, a lot of love, a lot of those memories. But at the same time, it was contrasted with, the helicopters that were overhead. And there was definitely a police presence visible. There was, security all around, even though it was a peaceful gathering. And that was my memory of being on those steps, because I've never been in the Capitol myself either. But yeah, I figured all the shenanigans were going to come from inside the building, because I'm a bit of a political nerd. I'm following all the, the intrigue and, who's going to object and at what point are they going to do this. And, I'm into all of that stuff. So I'm figuring inside the building is going to be the fireworks. So they called states and they got to Arizona and they objected, they broke. And that's the point at which I said, okay, they're going to deliberate. Let me get back to work. And at some point I got an alert on my phone that said people were in the rotunda. And Jay, I think I was kind of like you. I was kind of in shock. Like, wait, who's in the rotunda? How? Like, there's, this is, I understand how security works in DC. For those who have not been there, it is a different level of security around certain facilities. And it doesn't discriminate, in my understanding. They tell you move or we will move you. There's not a whole lot of, gray area when they speak about how, you're going to back in this space. So yeah, to then bring up those images, and I'm seeing, and we didn't even see the worst of it right off. We didn't see the stuff that came out later that was deep inside the building. We saw up front where it was just, flag waving and breaking windows, and that's heinous enough. I mean, to me, that was equal to, when one guy threw a shoe at President Bush, was about 15 years ago. First thing I thought was like, how disrespectful. This just totally ignoring, all the norms that we stand for. Like we're breaking rules now that have stood for years and years. I mean, I'm a history buff. I immediately went to the War of 1812. Like, to see the Confederate flag being paraded through the Capitol, where that flag had never flown, that was the to me, they were flying the flag of the enemy, and I was incensed.
Mm-hmm.
You're flying enemy flag, you're waving Nazi paraphernalia inside the people's house, inside America's house. I mean, I feel about the Capitol the same way I feel at the Olympics. It don't matter what the politics is. When we come together, that this is all of us together.
Yeah.
And and there was a very, very palpable sense of like, we've crossed the line here. And I definitely heard the speech prior to that. And I mean, it was high octane. He was giving them the gas. His foot was on the gas pedal, and I was ready for that. I expected that. Mm-hmm. And he said, let's walk to the Capitol. I expected that too. But you know, I expected flag. I didn't expect what came next. I felt that we as Americans had a line, and for that line to be breached and the reasons that were given for it being breached, I couldn't reconcile that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I totally can understand that, Chris. You know, one of the things I want to say, and I want to say thank you for your service to Jay, Chris, and Mr. Linwood for the service that you had, definitely. But I want to then kind of take it there for a moment. And if you could just bear with me, David, as I talk to the three veterans in the house for a minute, because I'm a military brat, and I am a proud military brat. And I grew up, my whole family's military. The only reason why I didn't go in is because my husband said that wasn't in his plan. So I said, what's your plan? And he gave it to me and I liked it. So I went with it and married him. But I say that because as someone who's grown up in the military and had people in all branches of the military, I grew up proud to be an American. Despite, and I tell everybody, in your house, that doesn't mean everything's perfect, right? So in the house of the United States, everything's not perfect. But I was proud to be an American because I grew up. That's what we fought for. That's what we defended. And I understood that freedom was not free. It came with a price. And I probably understood that those who served in the military definitely, and then those families who served along with you definitely understood that freedom isn't free. It comes with a price. And so I want to talk to the three of you really quickly and get your take from being a veteran, from understanding what you're fighting for. And Jay, you said it earlier, this was not someone that we could point our finger to that was outside of the US, that we could rally around and say, hey, we have this common enemy. This is us dealing with, I'm sure that as Black men in military, you dealt with it, whether you were in state or out of country, you know, in some ways, dealing with something that is part of our history from the beginning. And that was the difference that came for people of a different color in majority. Because and we know that there were other people of color out there, definitely, but in majority, it was a total different color that was out there. Where did you sit from a veteran standpoint as you looked at this and thought about what you had fought for and what you had done in the military?
Well, for me, it was just a total breach of the oath you've taken from a military standpoint. For any military person to be participating is just a desecration of the oath that you've taken to defend, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And really, when I look at my service and as a combat veteran, Vietnam era, that was a dark time in American history as relates to race. Mm-hmm. And you drive forward, there's not too much light in between that darkness then and the darkness Black people experienced. And a number of areas, yes, we made progress, but there's still some areas that we still have not arrived or achieved. And so from a military veteran standpoint, I was just disgusted. And again, I indicated earlier, I literally almost wept from what I saw. Yeah. And it flashed on my mind, what if it had been the movement of the Black Lives Matter movement? What would have happened? It would have been a bloodbath on the capital of these United States.
Yeah. I hear you, Linwood. I felt the same way. And Chris, what you said about seeing the Confederate flag and what's really upset me is some of the dialogue after, right? I saw somebody posted that on social media and they had said, this is appalling. And somebody went on to say, oh, but that's the battle flag. That's not like, I'm so tired of hearing that. We know what that flag represents, right? Whatever you got to tell you to make yourself feel better. But as a veteran, I felt like it was an attack on our country. Mm-hmm. And my anger was, who do we go after now? Right? I mean, like I said before, but I wanted to go after somebody. That was my first instinct. Was I was mad, and I was like, who do we need? These people are attacking. Let's stop them. Let's attack back. And then, cooler heads, right? But I'm with you, Linwood. And Chris, I'm a history buff as well. And I think about, I've told people sometimes I think black soldiers are some of the most patriotic in our country. They fought since the Revolutionary War, Linwood, I mean, serious respect for Vietnam era service when, you came home and probably couldn't drink out of the same fountain, couldn't go to the same laundry and all of that. Right. I mean, and my granddad, both my grandfathers fought in World War II, but, the black grandfather, I'm interracial. Black grandfather, could do transportation and cook food, right? I mean, so we have come a long way now. When you look at the armed forces, Chris, with your recent retirement, it's integrated. We have esprit de corps and everything else.
Sure. Yeah.
But and we come back to a free country. But when I think of the black veteran in particular, we are some serious patriots. And one of the things that really upset me was some of the dialogue afterwards. I hate anytime there's loss of life. We lost somebody that was shot there who was a veteran who was shot and killed. The hypocrisy, what really upset me was I kept reading, this is a veteran. They came to, show their rights and they died a patriot. And I'm sitting there thinking the hypocrisy of unarmed black people getting shot. What you heard after that, what I was told by people was, well, let's wait and see what happened. They may have been on drugs. They should have complied. And so looking at those videos, right, and thinking through the BLM, marches and protests and stuff like that, and then what you're seeing there on the Capitol, there's inequality even when you look at that. Oh, yeah. I know I'm kind of straying from the whole veteran thing, but as a veteran, I kept sitting there thinking, I want equality. That's what I fought for. I want equity. I want equality. I want, the same laws to be equally, used against us, right? I mean,
sure.
So
not a penny less, but not a penny more.
Right. I hear you, Loudness. And I just want to interject right quickly. It really made me think, what is a patriot? Right. Okay.
And you're right. And I
use that word patriot because it could be a code word for those who you think may be your neighbor. Who knows, right? But right. Well, I don't refer to people as patriots because I don't know where they be coming from.
I used to teach anti-terrorism classes to the new people coming into the unit, and I would flash pictures of Washington and Patton and all these heroes, right, from our history, and I'd be like, yeah, this is what we kick butt here, and I'd get everybody riled up, and then I would show Osama bin Laden. And I would show, other people that we have fought against, and people would just like dead silence, kind of confused, looking at me, right? Like, hey man, this guy's in charge of intelligence and security, and this guy's, what's he saying? And I would say, and that's where I would try to make the lesson of it depends on where you sit. One person's, freedom fighter is another person's terrorist, and not to condone any actions or anything against, people we've gone, right? But somehow now my big concern is now, we are talking about terrorists attacking the Capitol. And these people are saying, no, we're patriots. And so that's where my concern is that is a huge impasse. Because those are our own citizens.
Yeah. Yeah. I have in my neighborhood a neighbor down the street who has a Trump sign, and next to it, drain the swamp in DC. And I'm tempted to drain that swamp, right? Because, it really gives you pause to think, right? Who are you really interacting with? And it shouldn't be that way. But in this era, and these just uncertain, unbelievable time, you have pandemic And then you have this, a president who's delusional. Then you have cult people following him and proclaiming some of everything. And so, I don't know, we have a lot of work to do. And truth gonna have to be at the core of it.
Yeah.
It really has to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that drained the swamp. That there was a bit of Animal House going on there. To paraphrase the book for those who didn't read it, it was the farm. The animals took over the farm from the farmer and kicked him off because they were going to have, you know, fair play. But as time went on, the pigs basically replaced the farmer, because after a while they started wearing suits and doing all the things. They didn't, you know, they didn't get rid of the farmer. They replaced him. They ended up doing the same things, you know, that the farmer was doing to them before, you know, using some for food, using some for labor. They just replaced the swamp. So, you know, it seemed like you didn't really want to, you know, get rid of anything. They just wanted the power for themselves ultimately. So, you know, as people are talking about things that are Orwellian, you know, let's remember all of Orwell's, all his works and get on that. Jay, to your point, when I spoke to Sherelle, when I had my session with her, last year, I spoke about the pandemic, to your point, Linwood. One being like a slow moving 9/11, because at the beginning of it, I kind of said, you know, this is going to be devastating, but it doesn't look that way at the beginning. But by the time we're done with it, we're going to look back and say this is one of those watershed moments like a 9/11, where it was what happened before and what happened after. You know, nothing's going to be the same. And the thing about that's the parallel, was there's nobody to fight, because we want to hit somebody. You know, we're America. That's what we do. Who do we shoot? Who do we hit? And you can't hit a virus. So it's been so difficult to wrap our minds around it, because we can't have our usual response. And Linwood, to your point, yeah, this is, you know, you can't just, we don't want to go fighting our neighbor, but it's almost like there's a fight brewing, and we don't want that. We've seen that. We've done that in our history. We know where that leads. That leads to more of this. So, you know, what is a dialogue that can be had that makes sense, that brings us back? And honestly, I think 2020, I tell my friends that a lot of America took off its mask in 2020, you know, because we've been playing nice since 1865. Really, since 1867, we've been playing nice, like everything's cool, and we shook hands, and we're back together. But we're almost like a couple that like was going to divorce, but they didn't. But they still kind of don't trust each other, because there's been this sentiment has been brewing, and this isn't new. And I think that's the thing that we really have to address. And it's being brought out in the open. So now we see it. It's not hidden, and it's not latent, and it's not benign. You know, it's something we've seen bubbling in the armed forces. You know, they're just now starting to show articles where they say, wow, you know, these feelings are prevalent in the military. Are these feelings prevalent in leadership? We've been telling you this. This has been going on in my time. Jay, was going on in your time. Linwood, I'm sure it was going on in your time. It never stopped. So just the mask is off now. Now we can stop pretending. So now we can start addressing the issue.
So I like how you put that, Chris, that as 2020, when everyone was putting on masks, America was unmasking. And that's profound. That's really profound when you look at it for the year that it took us to have to go and be quarantined and put on masks to be able to kind of address some of the issues. Because I really believe that's what happened the summer 2020 is it became as big as it did because no one could move. You had to watch, you know, unless you turned off the TV, unless you turned off the radio, unless you just unplugged completely from everything, you were going to watch, and it was going to affect you in one way or the other. You know, Jay, you talk about, and I agree with you, that they had the right to protest, right? We all have the freedom of speech, is what you fight for, that everyone has the right to protest. So I don't want any viewers to think that we're saying that the protest was wrong or the march was wrong. What we're looking at is the attack on the Capitol. And I want to talk about that a little bit. in light of the marches, because the marches that happened in 2020 were saying, hey, we're speaking out against the injustices that have happened. We're speaking out of you treating us different. And then we saw it even in peaceful protests, rubber bullets and gas. And even in protests that were organized and had been given the go-ahead 45 seconds afterwards, they're having gas or trying to arrest people or whatever. 45 seconds, you can't disperse anybody in 45 seconds, you know. But just the agenda that was there. So I want to bring it back to David a little bit and bring him back into the conversation. David, was this the boiling point? 2020 with the marches. Look at this is validating what we were saying in the marches, right? Because they were opening gates. At one point, you can see them opening gates for everyone. They're taking selfies with the rioters at that point because they went from protesters to rioters at that point. Was this a boiling point for America? Because we thought that the summer 2020 was a boiling point. Was this the boiling point for America?
I don't think so. To be honest, it's a really ugly mark. It's a really ugly mark. It's boiling inside of a lot of people right now. We're boiling, but for America, to answer that question, I wouldn't say so, because for Black people, this has been a conversation that, as Chris was saying, has gone on for years. It's been something that we're not fooled about. When Trump got elected, I remember a lady that I worked with at a previous job. She approached me, and it felt like I was on like a duty to address everybody's feelings who was not Black at my job. They were like, "Hey, I can't believe this happened," and I was like, "I can." You know what I mean? Like I've been Black. I'm a young Black man. My brother is the same complexion as you, Jay, and over the years we have been treated differently. Mm-hmm. And you know what I mean? And we're Black, you know, we're both Black, but it's like this is not anything new. And so until it becomes a situation where other people, other races, not just white, but Asian, Latino, whoever you are, until everyone is enraged as Black people, it's not a boiling point. Because when you can just kind of stand on the sidelines and watch and kind of be like, man, that's messed up, Dave. Don't talk to me. Talk to the people that you're family with that is saying bad things that you know is bad. Mm-hmm. I know it's a tough conversation, but that could be my life that's on the line. You know, when I there's a situation where me going out to the corner store at night, man, all right, let me throw on this hat, or I got the hoodie. You know, it's so many different things that you have to think about. And with that, we're not even talking about that aspect of it. But in terms of a boiling point for the nation, what happened was, like, I mean, there's a lot of memes. I don't know how many you on social media, but there's a lot of memes and things going around where they're showing Black people sitting there eating popcorn. Like, yeah, I've seen this movie before. Y'all just got here. You know what I mean? We've been watching the same movie for years. Everybody else is shocked and appalled. And I think that is appalling. I get frustrated at that it took this to make you wake up and smell. My actual voice wasn't enough for you to validate what I was saying. You had to see something burn to the ground. And it is a disrespect to all the people who are veterans like yourselves. It is a disrespect to the people who are the Capitol officers who were left in the office and just left to do nothing. It's a disrespect to people who have to deal with this nonsense that we are putting on the internet and on TV, where they're saying, well, you know, it wasn't as bad as it was. It is disrespectful and it is wrong. That is the boiling point that I feel right now. But for America, I think in a couple of weeks, it's going to be, you know, that's why they wanted to get back to playing sports. That's why they wanted to get back to doing all this stuff so they can distract us. And I'm not trying to get on that bold tip, but it's like you got all them cats that's cheering for Alabama that won the game last night. I'm not trying to. I have friends and family, some people in Alabama, but some of the same people have situations where they were actually cheering on the march and then cheering for a football player that night for their same team. The mindset, the ideology is ludicrous to me. It is insane.
Oh yeah, it's full of hypocrisy, right? The same people that saying at the cross live nowhere near the cross, right? It's this vile hypocrisy that just kills me. It only becomes a boiling point when it impacts the powerful, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You think of everything that happened, whether it's AIDS or whether it's anything, right? resources become plentiful, bountiful.
Wow, he was back to A.
I'm just using that as an incident. When it began to impact the powerful, that's when they become outraged.
Yeah.
That's when they act, right? And so,
not until it touches them. Exactly.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so when they are impacted, then they become, we got to do this, right? Then everybody get on board.
Well,
But somebody become enraged. It took the death of George Floyd for America to become enraged.
Enraged. Yeah. Once an interesting conversation I had, and this is something I've really been processing through. I always try, even if I disagree with you, I try to sit in somebody's shoes, right? Their viewpoint, their lens, and think through their biases and consider all those things. I may still disagree with you vehemently, but at least, to me, that's how we communicate and we move forward. One of the things is I was kind of going back and forth, and this was really more around the whole Twitter and Parler being kicked out and all that. A lot of people on my social media were like, we're being censored. This is freedom of speech. So first of all, I went into civics classes. I'm like, let's talk civics, guys. Private company, this and that. And I felt like I was having this circular conversation. But one of the things that I noticed that I kept seeing a couple times was, but we feel like we're being singled out for our conservative ideals. And I had 3 or 4 people that I know very well that said that. And I kind of processed on that. And I went back and I said, great. Now you know how minorities and women feel in this country. Like you said, David, this is not a new chapter for us. This is not a new movie. This is the remake 100 for us, right? So, one of the things that I was hoping and I'm kind of trying to work towards in my conversations is saying, okay, even if that woke moment just happened for you just now, to feel that type of that type of feeling, can that be common ground that we can now have a conversation on? Because what I did was I just turned it around and I said, yep, right, welcome to my world. And now, when I was out there, at the protest, and when I was supporting protesters and things would get violent, and I would say, hey guys, you're always going to have the element, but always think about what was the core of this, right? What was the core of the Million Man March? What's the core? What's causing this movement? Forget about the what's happening there. Think about the core. Think about the message behind it. Can you not get behind that? And people were, no, this is anti, this is this and that. And I said, you just dismissed a whole group of people, and you just dismissed even me as your friend. Look at that. Well, now you're in those shoes, and you don't like it when people are saying back to you, well, you're just a conspiracy theorist and you're great. So I'm hoping that there is a small sliver of common ground in that conversation, that if they feel singled out, now a little taste of what it feels like and the reason why we hit the streets and why we've been hitting the streets for a long time. So we can move forward, hopefully.
Not to your point real quick, but one of the things, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Keep going.
I want to ask Jay a question right quick.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So Jay, what would be a common ground that make them feel the way we would feel? Because if you take it, we march for a purpose. There was an end result, impact, a desired outcome of what we were all about, right? They were following intentionally, sabotaging property, recording lives for something delusional, right? So the end goal was to hurt people. So they were really on a search, on a combat mission of search and destroy, and where we've been pushed for equality and inclusion, and equity.
Yeah, Linwood, what I would say when I make those comments, it's really not about the people that breached the Capitol. To me, those are the enemy. They're insurrectionists. I don't have time for that. Full force, get after it. What I'm talking about are those friends of mine who there are conservative, and they wouldn't breach that. They may go protest because they feel like their conservative views are under attack. Religion in school and pro-choice, just political things like that in that camp. And now they feel like their ability to speak is being pulled away because, you know, all the social media camps are not, you know, this, right, you know, coming after them. So that's more the group that I'm talking about, Lynn. If you, to me, you can't really, you can't negotiate with a radical, right?
I know. Yeah, they have my sympathy.
Yeah.
David, I want to get to your point, and then I have a question for the group.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say the biggest thing that made me relate to, because I too, like, being able to talk to a diverse amount of people. So white, black, you meet people, and sometimes you are, even though like people they wouldn't say this to me, but I know I'm probably the realest black friend they have, because I'm you know, I am who I am. I speak it, but I'm very much diverse and can talk to them. But what I would say is what made me think is that the football team in Washington, for years, I wasn't even a football team fan. My dad made me switch teams when I was 10. He's like, I'm from Philly, you're gonna cheer for Philly. But that being, you know, that being said, it rolls off of your tongue saying that name. And then especially when you're from around there, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, what, they got a game today? Oh, they got a game. And I'm not gonna say it because I'm trying to, you know, be respectful of it, but it rolls off of your tongue and you're like, what? I can't say it anymore. It's disrespectful. I've been saying it for years. And that's how that's the closest thing I can try to equate it to, that these people feel of doing things they've been doing for so long, and it's normal to them and it's natural to them. And you're like, what do you mean I can't do this anymore? I've been doing it. Who's it been hurting? But that it's a small sample, but that's the thing that I could like kind of, I'm like, how can I relate to them? Okay, well, they changed the name. Even me like saying it, it's very difficult sometimes to not say it. And I understand. I'm like, okay, so that's small sample, but at the end of the day, it's still wrong. You know what I mean? I hope that's tied together.
So we're talking about the former name of the Washington team.
Yes, the former name of Washington.
Okay.
Correct. And David, we talked about how I grew up there too. I actually wrote a paper in college a couple years ago defending it, because I mean, I know a lot of the team history, the background. I know about, you know, the origins, where it's okay. At one point, there is an element of respecting a certain population that was in the name, but then you know, through conversation, through additional research, through, you know, doing more understanding. So Jay, you may know where I'm going with this. So I realized Army Cavalry has the helicopters now. And all the Army Cavalry helicopters are named after Native Americans. All the Native American, well, a lot of them were killed by the Army Cavalry. I said, what kind of morbid historical? I mean, like oh god, like it hit me like a ton of bricks. Where I'm like, wow, dude, like we literally killed them all, and then we get to write the history to say what is and is not respectful to them.
Right.
That takes me to
a little more receptive to that aspect.
Yeah, that takes me to a point that I want to ask you, because you're hitting around on it, but we haven't really talked about it. And you know, a lot of people afterwards, they've come back, and there's been people who were mayoral candidates in their towns. We've had state representatives that were there and breached. We've had all kinds of types of leaders, right? Or just people in general, what we would say normal community people that are good neighbors to us. And one of the things that kept coming across as I watched all types of news platforms, I'm like you, Jay, I like to know all sides. It's not one way or the other. I want to know all sides so I can get a good, clear picture, because I don't want you to paint the picture for me. And it was like, you know, I just got caught up in the moment. Things got out of control so fast. I don't know what happened. You know, I regret this now. All of those things, right? So my question to you is this: how does privilege play a part in all of this that happened on Wednesday versus the summer?
I think you saw it on your opening video, personally. You know, I mean, just and I think it was Linwood maybe that said it. You know, what if this was a group of a BLM protest that started to breach the walls and said, we've had it? You're looking at a massacre. I think that's pretty much the consensus amongst minorities and advocates for social justice, that it would have been a completely different situation. And to me, that that privilege, that you had a senator that was giving everybody the high five and egging them on to go on, and then sits on the floor later after everything's going on, and continues to put their political agenda forward. And man, that's some serious privilege. You got people that were tweeting the locations of Nancy Pelosi during live tweeting the locations of people. I mean, to me, that's they need to be out. They need to have the full force of the law and our laws against insurrection against them. But I think that we'll probably see their privilege protect that. And of course, people will say, oh, I got caught up in the moment. Listen, all of us sitting on here, I mean, if we were in a situation and it started to get to a tipping point, we all have a moral code. I guarantee all of us, and I haven't even met y'all, but just in a few minutes here, would say, this ain't right. Let's go. Pick up the kids, get the grandkids, we're out of here. To say I just got caught up in the moment, nah. If you're going to do it, in my opinion, I'd rather you just go ahead and stand by your convictions,
right? And
say, I've reached that because I believe in this, and that. And yeah, I do think that we need to take over the government. I do think this. Go ahead and show it. Then at least we can understand. Then at least we can take care of things. But yeah, I think we'll see privilege. It'll be interesting. I think we'll see privilege. I hope we don't, when convictions should happen and people should be thrown out of office.
Yeah. And there were two clips. One was where you had a Capital City Police moving the barrier so some could come in. I don't care whether it was 10 minutes after, an hour after. They didn't welcome black folks in. The second clip was watching these people come out of the Capitol and nobody was arrested. Come on now, right? Even peaceful protests. Peaceful protests.
I want to interject right there real quick, and I want you to finish your thought. But one of the things that caught my attention, and because you're talking about it, I want to just add it in real quick, and thank you for letting me interject, is it looked like that they were leaving the closing of a museum. The way that they were ushering them out. It was the ropes and thank you for coming, folks type thing is what I saw as they were playing them leaving out and kind of ushering them out in that way. I'm gonna let you finish your thought, but I wanted just to add that in there because that was something that was mind-boggling to me. Why aren't you arresting them right now? They're right here. Why isn't that happening? Go ahead.
I'm with you, folks. Come on out. I'm
like they're playing a benediction.
Just come on out. Hurry out now before you get caught. I'm with you, right? I'm gonna put my cap on to show you I'm with you, right? And so you just think about it. Peaceful protesters at the North Carolina General Assembly, they didn't come out without being cuffed, and so you're gonna let folks walk out. If I can borrow your term, like they're coming out of the museum. Come on now. That's privilege, right?
We play by different sets of rules.
We do.
And
we have
we've known that. We've known that for years. With I think the phrase, the quote, the old quote is, when your skin color is seen as a weapon, you'll never be deemed unarmed. And so we are black and you're already deemed armed. You're already, I see it sometimes too. People just staring at you or think you're tough, or they want to test you, or they, pull up at the stoplight and turn the music up, or they looking at you, and it's like pressing you. It's like, I'm still in that window. I got a couple more years to where I'm like, oh, I'm a safe, older gentleman or what have you. But those rules, we can't play our music loud enough too much. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about how I live in my place right now for the next person that's a black person that wants to apply. Because if I mess it up, I could keep somebody else from being able to even get an opportunity to want to get an apartment.
Yeah,
and that's just the thing that I know. It's like we have to do that. And so the fact that we're talking about those minuscule things, us going outside and chanting outside of the Capitol, they would have had all those troops there on the steps pointing right then. I was in LA. I'm in LA, and they had the curfew, and they were shutting curfews down and pulling people out of the car and arresting them with the string ties and doing stuff. And it's like they weren't doing that over in Beverly Hills. They weren't doing that in West Hollywood, but they were doing that in the black neighborhoods and over here in downtown. And so it's just, it's really, I think the biggest thing that makes me mad is when, like Jay said, if you want to do it and you don't like it, tell me. But don't try to play and tell me the sky's not blue and I'm looking at it and it's blue. Don't try to play me like I'm a fool. I'm an educated man. I'm a smart man. I got 2 eyes. I got context, so I can see 21-20. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I can see what's going on here, and y'all playing us like we're fools. And that's the biggest hypocrisy. That's the biggest thing that's so frustrating and upsetting, and it's been repeated for years, and we're sick of it.
Yeah.
We cannot play it anymore.
It's the little things that you're talking about too, David, knowing that, you know, you're under a microscope at work, knowing that your slip up is magnified, knowing that when I get in my car, you know, with some people, I got to tell them, like, I have a ritual, got to take, because I conceal carry, right? I mean, and I take my wallet out. I have my registration in the side panel, not in a glove box, because the rules are different for me. And I know that I can't, you know, I tell people don't, you know, shoot a video, you know, if something happens, right? But don't move fast. Like, I mean, nobody else has to tell these stories, right? And those little things that we have to live with every day,
right?
Things that build and build and build. And then you see something like the Capitol, and you see how people are treated very differently. Between that and the marches and everything else that was happening before. You even see it differently when they show I think, you know, I saw online that, and hopefully it's accurate. Hopefully it's not, you know, social media, but, you know, the way the Capitol building looked with all the police in full armor, full mask armor, National Guard, active duty out there for the BLM march. And then you look at it for, you know, this situation, which it was on the media. I mean, you know, I was an intel guy, like it was out there, right? We knew something was coming, and you have a sprinkling of police there and a couple of, you know, barricades. And it's like, wait a minute. So, you know, you see all that, and it just, for me, it reinforces that, yeah, it's still a different world. And the pressure builds the pressure builds. And that's why you see people doing things, right? Getting upset.
Right.
Yeah. I think, and I've known it through my career and just in society. I know that there's, absent any context that we know of America, people tend to gravitate to those who look like themselves. You know, you see somebody, you see yourself in a young man that looks like you. You know, if I'm a white man and there's like a troop coming up, he's a blonde kid from Idaho and I'm a blonde dude from Idaho, you're going to feel that kinship. You know, I see the young brothers coming up just like they used to pull me to the side, you know, hey, young buck, you know, this is what you need to look out for, this is what you need to do. I feel it's natural to have a kinship. You know, Asian community, you know, Guatemalans, you know, El Salvadorans, they're gonna pull together. That's fair. I think that's a natural thing that happens. But then you put that backdrop of America and you put what that kinship has brought us, David, to your point, and you know, you can't just be a certain place or do a certain things because you know that history says this is how it's going to be looked at by somebody else. And, you know, and that wasn't by accident. I mean, we were written into the Constitution as 3/5 of a person. I mean, this was codified, you know, after the compromise of 1876. Let's go history lesson. While we're talking about contested elections, you know, the last time we had a contested election and people got all crazy with the electoral count, we ended Reconstruction and they put Jim Crow and they codified our skin color as being less than. Immediately after that, Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896, the Supreme Court then codified our blackness, that whiteness was in fact a privilege. So this was written. You know, we didn't make these laws. We were hanging out. Okay, cool. We'll do Black Wall Street. We'll do this. We'll do that. But the way that it was written, you then saw the two Americas start to emerge. You saw where, you know, we were never able to come together. You know, it was happening, and You know, I did research this week where they talked about Wilmington. They had a coalition, the fusion government, you know, poor whites and the blacks that come together to vote the, you know, the ruling class. And they literally launched an armed insurrection. They ran the black leadership out of town. They pulled the poor white people on their side, and they burned the media, the newspaper place to the ground, and took over the town and installed their own people. Literally what they were trying to do last week. So, you know, as much as we want to maybe not house it or cloak it in you know, that veil of, you know, how you appear or what the background is. I mean, you said this is an America, unfortunately, that was very America, and we have to confront that history or we're doomed to repeat it, as we just did.
Mm-hmm. Can I say one thing real to that? That you said confront it. Mm-hmm. That's the reason why. And I'm you know, I have faith in God, and I, you know, believe all that, but I don't know if that's something that will happen right now, because there's been a failure to acknowledge. And the failure to acknowledge is the reason why it continues to happen. It's not people saying, man, I didn't know. Now people are saying, I know, and I don't care. It didn't hurt you that bad. I stabbed you with a knife in the back, but I pulled it out a little. You know what I mean? Like there's a hypocrisy, and it's dangerous. And it's at a point now where people are just denying the truth. And at that point, it's not a matter of like, oh, it's right and wrong. Like, people are just blatantly saying, no, I'm gonna believe what I want to believe. If it hurts you, I don't care. I'm gonna do what I want to do. And that's why it's a situation where I don't know if black people have been talking about this for years, and they say it's not our fight. We're going to keep fighting, but to change the hearts of other people, the race, the white people that were out there, that's not our job, and we can't do it. We can go to, we're blue in the face, but it's not going to happen. I'm not trying to be negative, but I don't think we can change anybody like that. They have to change themselves.
No, you do have to have allies. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. Allies.
You have to have allies that speak with you, that understand, because they won't hear it from us.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So what do you say to the people, because we're talking about privilege, and I'm going to ask someone to give me a definition of privilege. But before we do that, as you're giving me the definition, what do you say to the people that say privilege? I'm not privileged. I struggle just like you. I was thrown out in the streets, and I had to survive, and I had to do these things and these things. Those things that you're talking about, I know some of those things too, but of the different race, right? Of the Caucasian or white race. What do you mean privilege? I don't have privilege in that way. You don't know my story. What does privilege mean, and what do you say to someone that maybe is thinking that or saying that as they're listening today?
You know, that is a tough question, Sherelle. Honestly, you know, I think just thinking about what Chris was saying, I love history, and I'm following everything that Chris is talking about from the history book. And I think that, you know, there are other people that have struggled. I mean, I'm biracial. I've got friends from all walks of life. Mm-hmm. You know, but there is a fact of the matter that these laws have been in place. We just, you know, when we were talking as veterans, we talked about the fact that you can fight and die for your country and come back and not have the same rights. You know, I think about my father couldn't drink out of the same water fountain as my mom. You know, it isn't that far. They're still with us. They're still, you know, they're still relatively young, right? I mean, so it's not that long ago that is going on. And so, you know, there's a video that I saw one time where somebody showed it. And I think I wish I knew the name of the video, but they said, you know, they lined everybody up, and it was a mixed group of people. And they said, if you've ever done this, move forward. If you've ever done this, move forward, move forward, move forward. Yeah. And black people were way back. And to me, that was just such a great representation, because they weren't things that were, and you had some black people, right? You had some other people that were back there, right? Yeah. I mean, there are people that have had hard roads, but what I showed was that, you know, the foundation for your road is a little different, right? For a majority of people. And so I think that's, for me, the best way to equate it, that we all have our personal experiences, those shape our biases. But the starting points have been different.
Mhm.
And to me, that allows privilege.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a clip that I used to use when I was teaching race relation in North Carolina National Guard. And it was this teacher in Iowa who separated her class, blue eyes and brown eyes. Blue eyes had special access, special things, special privilege. Brown eyes did not, right? And she proved it a point while using eyes. The question became, look at pigmentation.
Right.
You have the same thing, right? There's an entitlement that goes with this word privilege. And that clip always stayed with me because I reflect back, Jay, when I came back from Vietnam with uniform on, having almost died over there, I wanted a barbecue sandwich. I went and was told with uniform on, I had to go in the back door.
Right.
Yeah. And I was reminded that I was told when I went to jump school, the boots I had on could open any door. And I was destined to go in the front door, but I had an aunt who was almost ready to faint, saying, "Have you lost your mind? Don't you know how things are? You know, it's this way, you know." But for me, it wasn't that way.
Yeah.
And so you have the same stuff going on today, right? And that we are some of the most resilient people and the most forgiving people that walk this earth.
Oh my
God. I agree. You know what you said, something privilege for me when I think about it, and I was listening to your answers, Jay, and then it was really good. For me, it's not having to think if your race played a factor in somebody else's decision for you when how they treat you. So that's privilege. Sometimes I may have to think about like, okay, was that person just rude because they having a bad day, or they're just a mean person, or was it because I'm black? Yeah. You know, did that person cut me off and stare me down because I'm a black person driving over here, or were they just trying to get in a hurry, or do they have a somebody in the hospital they're trying to get to and they're frustrated? Did they just fail a test? You know, I had a serious health issue years ago, and not a lot of people knew about it, and I gave me a lot of empathy because I was like, man, people don't know what I'm going through. Yeah. So maybe I'm gonna give other people the benefit of the doubt, but it's us not getting the benefit of doubt. That is the privilege. You get the benefit of the doubt every single time, and we do not. I have to be an actor, a writer, doing this. Oh, I'm a like I was a teacher for 1st and 2nd grade, and when people found out I was a teacher, they were like, oh wow. And then when they found out I was teaching elementary school, then it was like, oh my God, you must be patient. You're great with kids. And it's like, but I had to do all these accolades, and why can't I just be like my boy Antoine, who's working back in Alexandria, Virginia right now, working at a CVS? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing different between the both of us. We're both black men, but one gets a little bit more because of this and something else. It's that privilege of getting the benefit of the doubt that other people don't even have to think about.
Yeah.
Love it.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you guys bring up some really interesting.
I'll tell you what, I mean, I mean, no, Dave, you hit on that one. That's why I rolled my eyes real hard too. I think Richard Pryor mentioned that once too. I'm a paraphrase. I'm not gonna go full Richard Pryor, but like you gotta do with everybody else's stuff, and then you gotta slap that on top too. Like, great, like we can't even have an argument now. Now I gotta be that on top of it. Or the worst ones is like you said, when you gotta sit and hold up, time out, do a save by the bell. Hold up, was that racist? I don't know. I feel like you get that thing in your gut where you feel like, something's wrong. You're like, I don't know, maybe I'm overreacting. Then you say, no, you feel some kind of way for a reason. You sensing some heat. You sensing a vibe that's a little situation of like, well, maybe I didn't dot my I report. Maybe it's as simple as a thing I really just didn't do. or is it something else? You know, so you always got to run it through that filter, you know, and that's another layer that you have to deal with. You know, why am I getting looked at funny? Oh, my bad. I dropped $1 on the street. That's why I'm getting looked at funny. Okay, it's not always that. But then sometimes you just, you know, why am I getting looked at funny in this neighborhood? I didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I hate that. There's always that extra layer. You just got to deal with that extra. And that's, again, that's the privilege.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the privilege,
wearing masks in a grocery store is a whole new thing. I'm sorry, I had to jump in, but wearing a mask in a grocery store freaked me out. Okay, the first time I wore a mask in a grocery store freaked me out because I'm growing up as a black man in America. No mask in the store. You don't have your hands in your pockets.
Come on.
It's just the things that you don't do. It's like
Talk about it.
Unlearn that. You know how deep it be.
That's so real. When we're putting on masks, I see some white people, and you know, they would wear a bandana, and I was like, man, especially, you know, and you guys know the connotation, like especially in LA, like black men wearing a bandana. I'm not about to be wearing that, but they are wearing it free, not even knowing the connotation that comes with that.
Yeah,
and I'm buying all types of nice masks. I got a mask that says "Be kind." You know what I'm saying? They looking at me funny. I'm like, man, I'm trying to make sure y'all know, because I feel you, Chris. That's exactly how I felt. I was like, I can't be wearing no mask in no store.
So, David, for our viewers, I just want to clarify for our viewers, when you talk about wearing a bandana and the connotation of that, tell us what that connotation means for those who may not know, that may be watching.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've lived in Los Angeles now. It's going to be 13 years. LA, there's a really big gang culture that was prevalent before I was born, late 80s, early 90s, even back then. And even now, you know, I have a lot of friends that are from LA, and I'm an East Coaster, but I love LA. It's been home to me. But even still, there's certain things that I know. Like a young man that's staying with me, he's from Seattle, and he had the S hat. And from my runnings and goings, I said, man, that's not a hat you want to wear out here, bro. He was like, why? I said, man, that's like the biggest gang in LA. And you will get pressed very, very quickly. So you wearing a bandana with the blue or red or any type of that, that's gang affiliated. That is something that will raise eyebrows for people of color. You know, a white person, I'm just gonna be real. They're gonna look the other way. If I throw on a bandana walking outside, it's saying a couple of things. It's a different Corona. You know what I mean? It's spelled a little different. Corona.
So that would be the same going out in the hoodie, right? A thug versus the young. Having on a hoodie, do I wear the hood up? Do I wear the hood down? What do I do and how I do that as well? I think just to give a different example of something that's as simple as a sweatshirt, a hoodie, and it means something different. It's perceived differently when a person of color wears it versus, and we've seen it. We know it by Trayvon Martin. We can bring up Trayvon Martin and so many others in that way. My question for you guys is this. I got a few more questions as we wrap up here. The first one is, do we fight for freedom, or should we be fighting from freedom? Does that make
Say that again?
Yeah. Bring her back.
Bring her back.
Ooh, I like that. Ooh.
So
bring that back. Make that plain.
So here we go.
Wait, yeah, Sherelle, say more.
Fight, and I'll use it from a Christian standpoint, right? So we already have the victory because you're in Christ. So you shouldn't be fighting for the victory. You shouldn't be fighting to be saying you are fighting from victory in the obstacles that you have. Does that make sense to everyone? Right, we're together. Now, the same thing as a culture, a black people, and do we fight for freedom? Is that what we should be doing, or should we be fighting from freedom? Because there's a difference in the way you attack that. One is, I know I'm free and I'm fighting from the freedom that I have, and one is I'm asking for my freedom. And I'll leave it there, and I'm gonna drop the mic right there and leave it there and let you guys take it.
Yeah. Well, let me throw this out. One, you can fight from freedom based upon your own assessment of who you are,
Mhm.
right? In other words, you're good with you,
Mhm.
right? But when you move beyond your own individuality and begin to look at what you're dealing with, you are fighting for freedom, right?
Yeah.
Within, you are liberated. Within, you feel free because you've been through the grind. As David has said, you've been there, done that.
Mhm.
And so I got enough fight in me to know that I'm still fighting for freedom because I have not yet achieved on a level that I know is due to me. And I use the word due to me because this whole notion of equity and parity has yet to appear.
Yeah. I'm with you, Linwood. I love that. I mean, I feel free. I certainly have
Yeah.
some freedoms. I have the ability to go and protest and speak my mind.
Right.
Now, I had to be a little bit more careful because of the reasons why we've talked about, right? I'm not wearing a hoodie to those protests. I'm not wearing, there are certain things that I just know I can't do that put me in a higher risk category potentially. For me, I want to take the freedom that I have, my knowledge, what I'm empowered with, and my skills and abilities, and continue to fight for the freedom of others. We still have a huge disparity with LGBTQ in our communities, with women, with ourselves, with other minority groups, right? So for me, it's a bit of both. It's just like what you said, Linwood. I'm gonna take my freedom, and I want to continue to fight because I think anytime you talk with other individuals that are working in the diversity realm, they'll tell you that this is one of the toughest jobs out there because you see us take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, step forward, step back, right? But you're doing that through generations, not just we're not talking about just year to year. And so for me, I feel like that is the banner that I carry, and that's the fight that has to be fought. And I'm going to use what's been given to me. The people that died, marched, were attacked by dogs, to put me in the position and give me the ability to get what I could get. It's my time, I feel, to advance for the people behind me.
Yeah.
And that's what I'll use my freedom for.
Yeah,
Great.
I agree with that.
Mhm.
Those are great
I
points. Go
I go
ahead,
back
Chris.
to the founding fathers documents. No, yeah, yeah, I go to the founding fathers, man. I mean, being in the military, we swear that oath. Solemn swear, support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and bear true faith and allegiance to the same. So what are you even swearing to? So, the words, start we the people in order to form a more perfect union. They acknowledge, hey man, we're just men. We are imperfect creatures. We have an idea, we have a thought, we have the grand experiment, a democracy, a republic, if you can keep it. The ideas were there. So, I feel like, the idea that, the Declaration of Independence, say what you want about Jefferson, but the words, the Declaration damn near makes me cry when I say it out. It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident. I don't need you to clarify. I don't need you to grant me. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men, we say women now too, but all are created and endowed with certain inalienable rights. That means they are not to be taken away. And among them, not the whole list, but among them are life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, which is important. I can't make you happy. I can give you the opportunity. I can hand you the water. I can make you drink it. I can try to help you pursue that. But the documents themselves say that in order for this thing to work, we have to not only ourselves, but for everybody around us, have to have that right to life, for our children to live, for our name to live, for our legacies to mean something. And that's inalienable. And if we feel like that's inalienable and it's from the Constitution that we defend, that's what we defend. We don't defend a person. We don't defend a party. we defend this idea that we're all born free, then we fight it, or we fight to make it more perfect. We understand that there are flaws. We understand that there are shortcomings. We understand that there are things that could be made better. But you know what? If we talk it out, if we lay it out and we're fair, you know, the arc of justice, as Dr. King said, is long, but it bends toward justice. You know, we just got to give it that time and that energy. So I'll yield my time.
I like that.
Everybody, I mean, excellent points, and I think all your viewpoints, just from having military backgrounds, are really, really strong. I think for me, coming into when I hear freedom now, I guess as you tie some of your personal stuff, it goes more to the mental aspect. And I can't fight for freedom unless I'm free here. And so what I say that is, I'm conscious of stuff that goes on, but I'm not in bondage. And that wasn't always the case. I used to be in bondage. I used to be like, man, they tripping, man, it's them. It's, you know, white man, or they hating, or they doing all this stuff. Now I'm conscious there's a lot of things that are against us, and there are things that are set up not for us to succeed. But I have freedom in knowing that I can still overcome them, and I can fight. And like you were saying, Jay, you know, you guys, obviously, I believe you're older than me myself, but looking at you and the examples that you guys have set, and your accomplishments, not even knowing you all that much, but just seeing you saying, man, these Black men have made it to where they are. I can get to that point. And then there are people behind me who are younger, who I'm trying to be an example for and set and come up, because we're in a different age now where you're attacked so much more on social media. You're bombarded with stuff in a way that, you know, I can put my phone down and say, I'm not getting on Instagram, and I don't got to make an announcement. You know what I mean? But somebody's like, I'm taking a social media break, and I'm like, okay. So it's like with this difference, I really fight for the mental freedom to be able to go out and fight for other freedoms. That, because if you're not free here, you can't even properly assess things that are happening that you need to attack or try to go after, to say.
That's right.
So as Black community, and it's Black men, and because it's a Black men's forum, do as a whole, is the lack of freedom, taking what you said, David, is a lack of freedom is holding ourselves in bondage first, and but not knowing and understanding that we've adopted some things, or we allow some things to seep in and take on some rules or standards that were subpar, and we just chalk it up to the man on the other side, not knowing that started with us adopting those things. That is a question I'm gonna throw out.
Yeah, I love David, what you're talking about, because you know, when you gave your kind of analogy there of like, it's them, you know, it's them, and you know, that's keeping you in that bondage, you know, and that's taking what, you know, a piece of society has put on us and said about us and put us in this box, and you know, it's acting the way they expect you to act, right? You know, kind of situation. And I do think, you know, I'm a huge proponent for mentoring and sponsoring and trying to reach out to underprivileged, particularly minority children, because, you know, you grow up in an environment, you know what you know. I mean, we talk about bias all the time, unconscious bias. Well, a lot of that's your environment, right? I mean, you think that you have somebody that's been in a cycle of poverty, a cycle of not being educated. You know, I had to have mentors and people in my life that just happened to hit at the right times that allow me to be where I am today. You know, because I didn't care about college for the longest time, man. I just wanted to go have fun, you know. But then somebody intervened, right? Okay, this is what college brings. This is what this brings you, and so I think that there is we do have to free ourselves, but I do think that some people need a help because they just don't know any better. I mean, I had an opportunity to go to a refugee camp in the Middle East. And I was talking to people, and most people would say, you know, these are our enemies. And I just interviewed people. I had access to people. I interviewed them. And you realize that, you know, they were like, well, our suicide bomber is the same as your Tomahawk missile coming out of nowhere, and you're accomplishing the same thing by different means. We're freedom fighters, again, going back to that analogy, right? And and a lot of people that I debrief with were like, "That's just savage." That's just, and I was like, "Wait a minute, this person is in a camp now, 3 generations in the middle of the desert. They don't have all the access to information that you have. They don't have access to all the tools that you have. And because of that, there is a certain amount of ignorance. If we could break that ignorance, I bet we could sit at the table and have a different dialogue. So, not to be long-winded, but I think your example, David, is perfect. Of you had to free yourself from that them, and say, no, I'm free. I'm gonna make it happen.
Yeah, I think Dave, you make an excellent point, but I just from my own experiences, I have to learn how to fight, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And you have to, regardless of the situation, you cannot let it get you down, right?
Right.
You're boxed in, and by their definition, you're not supposed to go but so far.
Uh-huh.
And then you have to have this mentality of I'm gonna make it. And so it's this inward fight that keep you going to say, I'm gonna get there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I love a lot of quotes and being inspired, because it's, we have not been given all the opportunities. So you have to find a way. They say like obstacles are the I forget the catalyst for creativity.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's like when you're struggling, you're like, okay, what do we do? Well, let's come up with this. And like slavery, how many things did we come up with in slavery? It's like all these things. You find out that Black people created all these things but couldn't patent it because of the laws.
Right.
But it wasn't that we didn't create it. It was just they weren't allowed to set up. But we've been intelligent, we've been smart. And I forget who said it, but the word is resilient. And that's where we have to be, because I really focus on the mental aspect, because I'm speaking for myself. There are times when I've been down. There are times when I've been like, man, I'm frustrated. Like I'm already dealing with my own personal life. I broke up with somebody, I got work stuff, I got this, and now I got to go to the store and y'all staring at me because I'm in line with a hoodie. I'm about to fight everybody, I'm about to go off. But it's like all these frustrations, you got to like, hey, bro, let's talk, let's chat, let's rap, and let's build. And I think that's why I like this platform, because Black men in general, I don't think talk, but Black men especially, we don't talk. It's always like, yeah, I'm good, I'm cool, but we don't get to the being vulnerable. And as an actor, I think that's why I am an actor. You have to be vulnerable. You have to go there, especially. But I think it's really great, and we got to continue to do this so it opens up more avenues for people to get that healing, to go and fight, like Linwood said.
Yeah. Martin Luther King made this analogy.
There's times you gotta
about fighting. King said that he came across this man who said, "I've been down so long, getting up has never crossed my mind," which literally means that if you allow situations, right, obstacles, right, get in your way, they will take predominance over you. So you have to, even when stuff come your way, when folks even put up roadblocks, you have to learn a way to come over it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta fight.
Yeah, I think about that resilience. I think, David, you're absolutely right, and you gotta that resilience matters, and sometimes being able to bounce those feelings off of us. Sometimes we need somebody to vent to. I remember watching the movie 42 that the brother Chadwick Boseman was in, rest his soul. And the one scene where, he was Black Steel in that movie. The whole movie, he was just strong. And then he had that one scene where he went down in the, in the tunnel and had that bat. You remember that scene where he just dumped it. He just tore it all up, tore the bat up, broke everything. And I was moved. I was like, literally, like it was some dust in the room, because I'm like, man, I could think of so many times where, you feel like you're at your breaking point, because we carry that weight. You feel like you're carrying it for everybody. And that brother literally carried it for everybody. you know, and he had to blow off that steam. For that reason, I try to speak to brothers when I see them in the streets. You know, growing up in DC, I kind of learned a different way. You know, it was avert your eyes, you know, what you looking at. But I feel like I had to grow past that. And I said, I'm not going to be constrained by that self-made barrier, or even if it's an external barrier. So I'm not going to be constrained by that anymore. You know, I speak, you know, how you doing? And I don't say it just to say it. I'm literally, hey, brother, hey, you good? You know, how you doing, man? You all right? You out here winning? You know, you know, that might be the only good word that man heard all day, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, we can't be afraid of our own, you know what I mean? Like, we can't be afraid anymore of that. That's
No, you can't be boxed in.
right.
Absolutely.
there are
So
external barriers out there. I mean, they've been put in place, but we got to fight through them.
Yeah.
absolutely. Guys, thank you so much. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you. This has been a very enriching. I learn every time I sit at each one of your feet. I learn more and more the Black man's perspective. And I thank you so much for sharing your perspective here tonight. As we close out, in true voices, the voices of the Black man perspective is to let each one of you take a moment to give some parting words, whatever that may be on your mind or on your heart, as we talk about humanity and civility, cultural equity and change. Because that's really all the things that we were talking about today. It's really kind of summing up, you know, there are differences. There are two different United States of America. And there have been from the beginning. How do we move that forward? What is all of our parts in that? And so I want to let you guys each take a moment to, if you have something to say, to just leave us with your wisdom.
Yeah, I can start, I guess. You know, first of all, it's been a real pleasure with all of you. I hope we can connect after this and continue to stay connected and support each other. You know, for me, I would say, where and when did empathy become a weakness? Today, it really seems like if you're empathetic to anybody, then it's shown as a weakness, that you have to dig in. It's your way, it's your people, and that's it. And we'll never get anywhere if we continue to operate that way. And I guess what I would say is we need to take a collective breath. And I hope that people who have said in the past, I'm so upset because that person took a knee on the field. I'm so upset because that person marched with a sign and it says BLM, whatever that is that enraged you, and really think, you know, what did this country do to you to the point now where you support people that invade the people's house? Take a moment and think about that, and think about everything that you have, and think about what we've been fighting for, and try to have some empathy, because otherwise I don't see how we're going to make progress, and we have to make progress.
Yeah. Jay, that is deep. I really appreciate your sharing. I want to thank each one of you, David and Chris. I really enjoyed the interaction. I do think that we as a people, right, even in these dark times, must find a way to coalesce around how do we build each other, right? Because the fight is real, and the struggle is real. And we cannot, someone used the word distraction earlier, we cannot allow distraction of another man's fight take us from the fight that we have. There was an old Negro hymn that talks about stick together, children. You know, we're going to have to really stick together. And I do think that if we ever get to a point where we literally can take the Black Lives Matter movement purpose together, etch it in our heart, and that spirit, we shall overcome.
That's a word right there. I heard a notable public figure about a year and a half ago said that, truth isn't truth. And I that stuck with me all this time. It's like truth has to be truth. And there's been a lot of misleading of people. There's been a lot of twisting of ideals, and just using people's emotions and their wishes for a better future to kind of turn them to their darkest impulses. And I think truth has to be truth. Integrity has to matter. Doing the right thing when nobody's looking. Doing the right things in the dark, because we're getting to that point where the mirror is starting to be held up and people don't like what they see. And and that's fine. There are people I talk to who talk about, you have to do your mirror work. You have to look in the mirror and face yourself and understand what those ugly truths are, because it's the only way to address it and move forward and break those cycles. And if this moment, if these events are what it takes for us, politically, economically, socially, racially, to break through some of these sticking points that we've had in America, and truthfully around the world, because a lot of people are watching us, then that's where we have to get to, I think. And as some of you have said too, I appreciate being around you. I appreciate this interaction. I appreciate the empathy that you guys have brought to this discussion, as we've all tried to take some of, not be in attack mode per se. We can our point of view while also being open to hearing something from somebody else that may not 100% line up with what we think, but I'm willing to hear it for the sake of understanding you. Because if I understand you, then maybe we can get something done. Ultimately, everybody just wants to raise their kids and, and have a little piece of something for themselves. And I think if we can all respect that about one another, and really do it, not just pay lip service to it, but really have that respect and really have that empathy, I think we can move towards making this a more perfect union.
No, I mean, man, it's been awesome to share with everyone. And Sherelle, thank you for this platform. And it was really enlightening to hear, hearing how, Jay, you talked about having different conversations, multiple people, and the history lessons that I was getting, Chris, and just, Linwood, just like the wisdom. So I think I took up something from all of you. I think one of the things that I take from my younger brother, is he says, don't try to boil the ocean. And so we always try to like do everything at once, and it's not going to happen. We'll frustrate ourselves. So what can we do? What little wins can we take? A goal of mine for this year is to do all I can today and go to sleep and wake up and do it tomorrow, because I know I am an overthinker. I am always like, oh, what's going to happen here? And then I'll psych myself out. And when we're talking about race, we're talking about our livelihoods. We're talking about people who are saying things that are like, hey, I hate you and I don't want you. Those are really like, you're almost in the defense mode now, and you got to be in an attack mode. But to make a rational and emotional decision and not a tactical and a logical decision is not where we need to be. So, we're not responsible. I'm not trying to be all, like playing both sides, but we are not in a position where we can control what other people do, but we can control what we do. And so as we are coming together, what we need to do is build one another up. We need to continue to have conversations like this and actually be proactive about the work we're doing, because I think as we strengthen ourselves, as we strengthen our emotions, as we strengthen our intelligence, strengthen our knowledge, strengthen our families, we will become better as a whole. And if we really focus on ourselves, like it's like playing sports, you don't always worry about the other team, what they're doing. They're there. You watch some of the film, you watch the game tape, but your job is to prepare yourself. Your job is to prepare what you're doing. If you practice your plays, then you really can only control what you do. And so I think that's where I'm at this point. I'm not surprised by the foolishness that I see out there. I really think there's a lot of hurt and just the baseline of people, and whether or not it's justified or not is your, who's your opinion. But I think at the end of the day, my hope and my prayer is that the hurt will be removed and that we can start, the phrase is start a conversation, but really have some genuine talks with people, because the more we do like this, ain't nothing going to get fixed. And I am in a place where I'm like, hey man, why do you feel the way you feel? Because we can't continue to do this. The sky is not blue. Yes, it is. The sky is not blue. Yes, it is. This is going to be a continuous thing. It's going to be another uprising, another thing down the road. And that's not good for any of us. So this is a good start today, this conversation, and hopefully people that were tuning in were able to get something from it.
Good.
So I say to you, gentlemen, again, thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you for your perspective. Thank you for each one of you in your individual lives, the service that you give, just being who you are in your unique areas. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Folks, let me tell you this. If you've been watching, whether it's live or on the replay, we just want to say thank you so much for being here. That's really what the Voices of a Black Man is about. It's a platform to first just listen. We were getting ready earlier, and it was said we got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. and that reason is because we need to listen first and speak less. So on our platforms, again, we don't do comments. We don't care about comments during the show itself, because it's about you listening and understanding rather than just a jerk reaction to something that maybe hit you wrong. The question is humanity and civility. Humanity and civility. How do we get back to that? How do we get back as a nation to those things? Understanding that there's difference in cultures, that there's equity that needs to happen, which means that there needs to still be more change. Where do we go from here? The United States of America is just not some big entity that is just by itself. No, it's made up of each and one of us, each individual person that's a part of the United States of America. So it goes back to something that Chris said a little bit earlier, and that is looking at the man or woman in the mirror. The late Michael Jackson wrote about it. I've got to look at myself first and ask about the change and be the change. So I'm asking you today, as you've listened, if you stayed with us for almost a 2-hour long episode, I'm asking you this question. Can you look at yourself in the mirror? Is there something that was said today that hit you a little bit differently? And rather than just getting on the defense, drill a little bit deeper and see why. Why did that make me mad? Why don't I understand that? See, little by little, we can change our own biases because we all have them no matter who we are. But we first have to do what David told us to do. Recognize that they're there. Recognize that there are differences that are happening. And then do what Jay talked about tonight. Jay talked about seeing what's on the other side, understanding the other perspective. So putting yourself in other people's shoes to really get an understanding so that we can do what Mr. Linwood Long talked about today. And that is come together, but one, reconciling in ourselves first so that you can fight from the freedom that you have as an individual, but not trample on someone else's freedom, and understand those freedoms that they may or may not have, those liberties that may or may not be there. It's James Baldwin that said, we can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist. That's exactly what we were talking about tonight. Thank you so much for listening and watching the town hall. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I'm Sherelle James, founder of the Voices of the Black Man, moderator for tonight. But more importantly, want you to know that we have a part 2 that's coming up. And it's coming up on Monday, January the 18th, 2021 at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And yes, it's not missed on us that Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the United States. Until next time, you love yourself first so you can love others next and be the change. Have a wonderful night.